Hello. The Kelly and Victoria Fairy Stories, Volume 1. No More Cake. If you should happen one day to go into a garden and look behind a hedge and spy under a bush next door to a daisy, and if you looked hard and were good and always brushed your teeth, then you might, just might, catch a glimpse of a house. Victoria Fairy's house. It was a lovely balmy spring morning, and Victoria Fairy was having a levenses with Kelly and Polo on the village green. They were having tea and crumpets and jam doughnuts, which Polo particularly liked. The boys also munched on sugar lumps, which would have been bad for their teeth, but Victoria Fairy didn't think they had any. They had just finished the crumpets and were starting on the doughnuts when Kelly, who had been asleep with his leg in the air most of the morning, jumped up with a cry and started running about. He was very upset and shouted, "I've got a nosebleed!" It took them 5 minutes to catch him and calm him down, as being a unicorn, he was not unlike a horse, and so very fast on his hooves. Polo held him tight as Victoria Fairy looked at his nose, which was very red. "Does he need a bandage?" asked Polo. "I could put it on for him. I'm a qualified surgeon of philosophy." Victoria Fairy ignored Polo, as it sounded like he had done one of Kelly's night school classes, which sometimes looked a bit dodgy. As she looked at the blood on Kelly's nose, she thought,
"There's something odd about this. This isn't blood. This is jam,"
she said. "I've got a nosebleeded jam!" wailed Kelly in despair.
"No, you haven't, silly,"
said Victoria Fairy.
"It's just jam from the doughnut."
Kelly had a think about this, and then very gingerly put out his tongue and gave his nose a cautious lick. He gave a little cough and wiped his nose on his handkerchief. "Well," he said, "it was very nasty, I can tell you, whatever it was." Victoria Fairy and Polo looked at each other and smiled, but only when Kelly wasn't looking. Both tried very hard not to laugh, which was easier said than done. They settled back down again to their picnic, but there was a problem. In all the panic and running about, they trampled on the other doughnuts. They all felt their tummies needed some sort of doughnut or cake, so they decided to go and buy some from the bakery. The village bakery was run by Ericsson, a hedgehog, who was French, and who made the best tarts and cakes in all of Wedgwood town. "Bonjour," said Kelly as they walked in the door.
"Bonjour,"
said Ericsson cheerily. Kelly had decided to order some cakes in French because he said he was the best at speaking other languages. But Victoria Fairy had to make him stop, as he only seemed to know how to say, "Where is the monkey?" And Ericsson didn't seem to understand that what Kelly meant was, "We'd like some chocolate cake and scones, please." When they finally explained what they wanted, however, Ericsson just shook his head.
"I'm sorry,"
he said sadly.
"I have no cakes to sell. I have not had my delivery of flour. so I can make nothing for you.
This was a dreadful shock, especially to Kelly, who looked as if he might cry. "No more cakes," he said weakly.
Where do you get your flour from?
Asked Victoria Fairy.
From Mr. Norman, the miller,
said Ericsson.
Well, why don't we go and see what has happened?
Said Victoria Fairy helpfully. So Victoria Fairy, Kelly and Polo set off towards Mr. Norman's windmill, which was on a hill a little outside the town. As they approached the windmill, they could see at once what was wrong. Usually the windmill had 4 sails that slowly turned like a big cross shape, but as they looked, they saw that one of the sails was broken halfway up its length. They found Mr. Norman outside the mill, looking up at the broken sail.
Hello,
he said to them as they all stopped beside him and looked up.
I don't know what to do. I haven't got a ladder long enough to reach it up there, and I'm already late delivering some flour to the bakery. What am I to do?
I'll fix it for you, said Kelly, and with that he flew up into the air and started to hammer nails and saw bits of wood in a whirlwind of activity.
I didn't know Kelly could fly,
said Victoria Fairy to Polo. Oh yes, said Polo. All unicorns can fly. They are magic, you know. He looked up at Kelly, busy with the sail, and then turned back to Victoria Fairy. But they are rubbish at DIY. You'd better magic me up there before he breaks the other sails. And so Victoria Fairy waved her wand, and Polo flew up and quickly sorted out everything and took charge without Kelly noticing, so he didn't get upset. When they had finished, the sails looked as good as new, and Mr. Norman was so thrilled he did a little dance, which was one of his hobbies. Victoria Fairy waved her wand again, and down came Polo. But Kelly couldn't fly down, as he'd caught his jeans on a nail. "Help! You sherbets!" he cried as the sails started to turn in the wind, with Kelly stuck to them. "I'm not happy, and I feel sick," he yelled as the sails turned him upside down. Aiming carefully, Victoria Fairy pointed a wand, and Kelly was released with a whoosh, and he shot up in the air, and then came back down, and flew in through an open window at the top of the windmill. There were several crashes and bangs and shouts from Kelly, until finally he appeared out through the door at the bottom, covered in flour. He looked just like Polo. He just had a few small scrapes and bruises, but Polo insisted he had a bandage, which made him feel much better. And he felt better still when Mr. Norman ground up some wheat and took the flour to Ericsson's bakery, where Ericsson made them all the best chocolate cake and scones they had ever had, and which they had for tea. Later that night, back in her cottage, as Victoria Fairy was getting ready for bed, the phone rang. "Hello? Is Kelly on the phone?" said a voice.
Hello, Kelly,
said Victoria Fairy. "I've had a bath, but I've still got some flour in my ears," said Kelly.
Oh dear,
said Victoria Fairy.
I'm sure it will go away soon.
"Good," said Kelly. "I've had a right old day."
Yes, you have. Poor thing.
"Anyway," said Kelly, "it's time to go to bed, tucked in, no nightmares." And he was gone,
I expect you're right.
thought Victoria Fairy as she put down the phone. And that's what she did. Goodbye.